final speaker, and introduce you to Colin Fox. Colin's a well-known name and a well-kent face from it. Colin was one of the first MSPs for the Scottish Socialist Party, and he was a member for the Lorries from 2003 to 2007. He sits on the Yes Scotland Advisory Board, and at this meeting, this follows a packed meeting he had recently in Banbury, Cardiff, last week. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Colin Fox.
Thank you very much, Danny, and thank you to the people at Armadale for organising tonight's meeting. And above all, thank you for coming, and congratulations for engaging in the most important debate and discussion Scotland's had in 300 years. Tonight's meeting, as Danny said earlier, this meeting tonight in Armadale is like hundreds taking place across the length and breadth of Scotland. Hundreds, from villages and towns in the Shetlands right down to Dumfriesshire, where people are considering the issues in front of us. It's the biggest grassroots political movement Scotland ever seen, Yes Scotland. And we're proud that that's the case, because this is a very important debate, and it's right and fitting that there should be a movement of this kind which puts forward the case for independence. And our team Scotland, if I can put it that way, is made up of very talented men and women, the length and breadth of the country, who've grappled with really important issues and come to the conclusion that the best way forward for our country, the way to guarantee the prosperity, the fairness and the democracy we want, is to vote yes a week on Thursday. And I have to say to you, what is it, 9 days to go? Is it 8 days to go? I know it's the week on Thursday, somebody else will have to do the counting, but this is on a knife edge. This vote is on a knife edge, and I'm about to say to you, it's probably no good time to have an ulcer. I'm reminded of that scene in Airplane. You remember the guy in the air traffic controller who says, looks like I picked a bad time to give up amphetamines. Looks like I picked a bad time to give up glue. This isn't a knife edge, and I have to say to you, this isn't a knife edge, despite the fact that the London political and chattering classes have for the past 2 years effectively said, oh, boring, boring, go on with it, foregone conclusion, no's going to win, let's get back to talking to other issues. And I don't know if you had the experience I had on Saturday night, watching the press review on BBC and Sky, when the new Gov poll came out and it showed that the Yes campaign was in the lead. Honest to God, I watched Bonnie Greer, Jasmine Alibi Brown, Eve Pollard and others, and you know what it was like? It was like watching 4 teenagers who've realised they've got their higher Scottish a week on Thursday, and they realise they've been dogging classes for the last 2 years and expect to pass. Stupidity is breathtaking, quite frankly, and I was appalled that that was the case, and I thought to myself, you know, it must have been like that in London in 1745, when they found out that Bonnie Prince Charlie was in Derby. He was only 100 miles from London, and they thought he was still in the Highlands, still getting off a boat, and they were running for the hills. It's farcical. But of course, we are more engaged in this debate than they are. We know what it's about, and it's about our future, the future of our country, the future of our children and grandchildren. Alistair Darling said this time last week, this referendum is a test of the judgment of the Scottish people. And I agree with him. In that regard, that at least he's right. This is a test of the judgment of the Scottish people. And I'm confident the Scottish people are going to judge what they've learned in the last 2 years and decide to vote yes, because what we have learned in the last 2 years, maybe there's other people who knew this already, but we've learned in the last 2 years, Britain is not a country. Britain is not a country. Britain is that rare thing in the world today, a political union made up of 4 countries. Scotland, on the other hand, we are a country. We are a nation. We're not a region or a province of anywhere else. We're not a region of England. And we're not a region of Britain either. We are a nation. And this, at its heart, this debate is about saying Scotland simply wants to take for granted that what 280 free independent nations of the world already take for granted. This is a democratic question. And I stand in front of you as a socialist and a trade unionist, all my political life, conscious political life, and I make this point to you. Supporting Scotland's democratic right to self-determination, does not make you a Scottish nationalist. It makes you a Democrat. This is a democratic issue. The people of Scotland have the right to determine their own future, and that's an inalienable right that nobody can take away from us. And 100 years ago in West Lothian, there was people like John McLean, the leader of the Right Clydesiders, was here. People like James Connolly, executed by the British for his participation in the Dublin Rising in 1916, were in this part of the world, and making clear that as socialists and internationalists, independence was a step forward for working people. Why? Because we, working people in Armadale, Motherwell, where I'm from, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen, we'd be better off. We'd be better off with independence, economically better off, socially better off, and politically better off. And why? Why can we say that? Because as some of our colleagues have pointed out, the OECD, the Financial Times, the Economist, and others have pointed out an independent Scotland with the 14th richest country in the world. And why? Because like those other rich countries in the world, we've got a diverse array of wealth-creating industries and services. Yes, we've got oil and gas, but we've got renewable energy that produces a third of the electricity we can use currently. World-class financial services, world-class IT, world-class life sciences, world-class universities. And you know the BRIC economies of Brazil, Russia, India and China? One of the things they've got in common, if you study it, is an insatiable thirst for Scotch whisky. There's a billion Chinese in front of you in the queue for Haddos for that bottle of famous grouse that you like. We have an insatiable desire and taste for Scotch whisky, Aberdeen Angus, smoked salmon. In other words, we can look to the future and understand this is a wealthy country. And I'm bound to say to you as a socialist, Danny, don't let anybody tell you different. But the most precious and wealthy resource that Scotland has is sitting in this audience. It's the people of Scotland. We're educated, talented, resourceful, enterprising. This is the country that gave the world the Enlightenment. This is the country that gave the world the Shop Stewards movement. We should have every confidence we can determine our own future and run our own country, because I'm damn sure we can. And let me say one thing in passing about the oil and gas debate. I felt from the very beginning, this is the weakest part of the no case. You know, they say, Fiona, Katrina, Pat, come to me. Kate, that's right, and Colin, they say, that oil, it's about to run out. And by the way, it'll be run out by Friday and it's worth about 4p. You know, as I checked at the stock exchange tonight at 5 o'clock, it's worth about 4p. And you know what's the reality? 95% of the countries in the world will give their IT for our oil and gas reserves. I'm sure they would take the gamble to see if it's going to run out by Friday, or if it's worth only 4p. Ours is a wealthy country, and this debate's not about whether Scotland's wealthy or not. The no side have finally conceded that. Tell you what this debate is really about. It's about how we use that wealth to at long last eradicate the scars on our society. The fuel poverty that affects 1 in 3 families in West Lothian. The child poverty that is a scourge in Scottish society. The food banks that we suffer from. The chronic low pay we suffer from. The chronic shortage of affordable housing. That we all know Westminster does not give a monkey's about and will not change because they're wedded to a neoliberal warmongering politics that we reject. And that's why politically we'll be better off than independence, because after the 18th of September, and I was in Princess Street today at the East End, and somebody came up to me and says, David Cameron and the Cabinet's cancelled Prime Minister's questions and they're coming to Scotland tomorrow. And I was like that, shaking at the knees, shaking at the knees. I thought, head for the hills, head for the hills, save yourselves. David Cameron's coming here. We have a week to go, because he's never been here before. And of course, on the 18th of September, we vote yes, and then what happens? There's no more David Cameron. There's no more Tory governments that we never elected. There's no more fried nuclear weapons. There's no more scapegoating claimants and immigrants for a crisis caused by the bankers. Their days are over. And there's no more laddies for West Lothian, laddies and lassies for Armadale, sent to die in illegal wars for British imperialism. not made up your mind, I hope you'll consider the case for vote yes and vote yes on the 18th of September. If you have made up your mind, you can still help us to persuade your family, your friends, your sister, your brother, your mum and dad that they should vote yes because it's in their best interest too. There's still time to get involved in Yes Scotland, the Radical Independence Campaign, the Women for Independence, NHS for Independence, the Scottish Socialist Party, whatever you like. Promise yourself this. Promise yourself that on the 19th of September, Friday the 19th of September, when you wake up and Scotland has voted for independence, you can turn to your wife, your husband, your partner, your son, your daughter, your colleague at work and say, I did that. I did that. I changed the world forever. Thank you very much.